Welcome back to BLOCKTV. It's time now for Crypto Crunch, and today we're joined especially from Detroit, where it's the middle of the night, and we're speaking with finance magnate Rachel McIntosh, who has woken to join us still. She will not let day, night, or anything stand between her and speaking with us at BLOCKTV about her stories of the week. Rachel, firstly, I want to thank you for taking the time to come speak to us.
No problem, Asher. The news never sleeps.
That's exactly right, and I'm glad to see you're living that ethos. All right, so now, Rachel, starting with today's first top story you picked out for us, the update for the BitLicense system in New York, very close geographically to where you are in the world. They're looking to streamline their licensing system. What can you tell us?
Right, exactly. So basically, this isn't a totally earth-shattering change for the New York Bit license. There's been a lot of controversy about this license ever since it started in 2014, saying that it's too expensive and too cumbersome for new companies, particularly to join, and ultimately that has hindered the growth of the cryptocurrency industry in New York. But any change is a sign of positive forward motion. So what we've seen now with this change is that the Bit license, the New York Department of Financial Services website now has a list, or will have a list, of approved assets that companies can offer their clients. And also the New York Department of Financial Services can also approve listing processes for firms that offer assets to their clients. So instead of every time that a firm wants to offer a new cryptocurrency, to their clients, previously, before they would have to go through every single one and say, hey, is this okay? And New York Department of Financial Services would have to say yes or no, but now things are much more streamlined. So although this isn't really changing much about the way that the Bit license is obtained, like I said, any change is sort of a good thing at this point.
Now, Rachel, to get a little speculative on this story here and talk about some of the potential impacts, do you think, obviously, New York, it's a major global financial hub, obviously the United States' leading financial hub, and I suppose I wonder, the fact that this Bit license system has been in place in that state, do you think that might have impacted the ability for some smaller scale new startups, let's call them, in the crypto world from entering the space, and has led to the sort of domination that we're seeing, particularly in the exchange space, through the big players, like, we're talking Gemini, Coinbase, Kraken. You think it's led to them dominating a limited space?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Asher. Yeah, exactly. So it's been, sort of criticized exactly for that reason, that new companies who may not have a ton of capital, who want to move into New York as one of the largest financial hubs in the world, just haven't had the opportunity because, going in there, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars perhaps, on gathering the materials necessary to apply for a Bit license, and then also paying the Bit license fee on top of that just isn't feasible. So indeed, what we've seen is that the cryptocurrency players who've entered the state of New York have been these big guys: Coinbase, Gemini. I don't think Kraken actually has
yeah, don't quote me on that one. I might have been wrong about that one. It was illustrative. It was an illustrative point, not a point of journalistic reportage.
Yeah. Exactly, but you're exactly right. It's interesting to see how New York has evolved as a hub for the cryptocurrency industry. Certainly, there are a number of large players in the city of New York, in the state of New York, but it hasn't been this sort of sandbox environment that a lot of other cryptocurrency hubs are. For example, Malta, Switzerland, other places. Perhaps in the United States even. It's sort of the big leagues of crypto. At least I think that's what they like to think about themselves.
I think that's generally what New York likes to think about itself, and perhaps rightfully so, given the amount of money that flows in and out of that particular part of the world. All right, but speaking of money flows and whether or not we're going to see those, I love the title on this article of the ho 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 or the no no no, the Santa Claus rally. For those who aren't familiar, this idea that there is a boost around December. Now, I've spoken on this on BLOCKTV in the past, Rachel. I don't like the name Santa Claus Rally. I think it's too denominational. I prefer the December runs. But that notwithstanding, what is this phenomena? Can you help break it down? And do you think we're going to see it in 2019?
Right, exactly. I think we need something that's a little bit more inclusive now that we're almost in 2020. But in any case, the quote unquote Santa Claus rally or the December runs is this phenomenon where in the last week of the year and then into the first 2 trading days of the new year, there is a boost. And this has been observed across stock markets as well as cryptocurrency markets. This is a well-known phenomenon that has taken place in, at least in the Bitcoin markets, I believe the majority of the time that Bitcoin has been around. So basically, I think what's interesting about this is not necessarily, for this year, not necessarily the phenomenon itself, but the fact that several analysts, including Willy Woo, have pointed to the fact that this, Santa rally or Bitcoin December run could actually be the beginning of something much bigger. So Bloomberg pointed out, they found with their trading envelope indicator that we're approaching an inflection point, that something is about to happen. And Willy Woo has pointed to the halvening, which is the halving of Bitcoin mining rewards, which is coming all the way in May, so quite a far away. But actually, the fact that that's approaching, if there is indeed a Santa Claus rally this year, that could be the beginning of the price run that usually surrounds halvenings.
It perhaps could be that potential bump, though. As we say, I mean, I've analyzed this in the past. A lot of those runs occurred during the start of the month, 2017 being a notable exception, where throughout the entire month there was a great surge. I mean, I suppose I wonder, given the tepid start we've had to this month, do you think that perhaps we might miss it this year? Is there a chance?
Exactly. We might see coal in our stocking this year with the lack of a Santa run at the end of this year. And it's certainly possible. It's not a guarantee that this is going to happen, even though it is, commonly observed. We've seen a little bit of funky action this month. So you were right, tepid at the beginning of this month. Last week, we started to see some positive action, and then it's kind of gone back down. But of course, I mean, sell-offs can trigger, large-scale buying as well. So it's just about, timing and sentiment. But I do believe, that we could eventually be on the brink of a larger price run, given the fact that the halvening is coming, although it isn't coming for another 5 months.
Yeah, certainly, but that hype might be in the air, and people might get a little frisky before Christmas. Decide to do a little present giving. Give a Bitcoin to a relative for Christmas this year. Fill a stocking.
Yeah, you can
with
send
Bitcoin.
your Bitcoins to me. I would be very happy.
Okay, there we go. There's your offer right there, ladies and gentlemen. Rachel will happily accept a Bitcoin for Christmas. All right, now, for those who are perhaps licking their wounds rather than receiving gifts and maybe are in dire need of a gift of a Bitcoin, we turn now to a pretty serious fraudulent scheme, a multi-level marketing scheme that seems to have come to light. We're talking about the BitClub network, in operation since 2014, netted a potential $722 million. Rachel, what can you tell us?
Right, exactly. So at least 3 individuals have been indicted at this point in the state of New Jersey, as well as other places around the world. And this is a huge fraud, $722 million, as you said. And of course, unfortunately, that the language that was really notable about the way that the fraudsters were treating their clients is that they called them, quote unquote, sheep, and really seemed to imply that they thought that the people that they were defrauding of the $722 million were stupid, essentially. However, Ponzi schemes, unfortunately, are as old as time themselves. And although that this one is dressed up under the guise of technology and new things, new trends and things that, perhaps some of the victims may not have been totally savvy about. This is just the same old. And one of the largest Ponzi schemes that we've seen in quite a while. So interestingly, of course, last week we had the story about CipherTrace finding that this has been one of the largest years, or perhaps the largest year, in terms of cryptocurrency crime and the amount of money that's been stolen through crime. But the nature of crime is changing. We're seeing less frequent attacks, hacks, Ponzi schemes, but the ones that we are seeing are quite a bit larger, and that certainly fits the bill.
Yeah, certainly. And by that CipherTrace count, I believe it was at 4.4 billion as of the CipherTrace report, with this additional 722 million factored in, with well above the $5 billion mark. There's a lot of money flowing through, but as we spoke about previously, Rachel, perhaps that concentration might make it a little bit easier for authorities to start cracking down on some of these bigger schemes.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting to think, that this year there's been sort of the uncovering of several of these large scams, including Plus Token and OneCoin, and now this. So, you have to wonder, is it like, are we just starting to scratch the surface of these Ponzi schemes, these huge multi-level marketing schemes that span continents and hundreds of millions or billions of dollars? Is this just the beginning, or is this the end of something that's been going on for several years? I think it's too soon to know at this point.
Yeah, certainly, it does seem to be that way. Let's hope it's towards the end and we're not going to find a lot more under the covers. But as with all things cryptocurrency, sometimes it can be a tad opaque, let's just say, and there are some hidden messes that can occur underneath there. But in the meantime, Rachel McIntosh, I want to thank you so much for taking your early morning hours to speak with us here on BLOCKTV. And for those at home, stay with us at blocktv.com for all the latest in news and information. I'm Asher Westrop Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.